You start talking, I'm gonna share the link to you through Messenger. How's it?
Yo, what's going on, everybody? Happy Father's Day to every dad out there. Um, Man, it's been a beautiful day. I know everybody is busy and doing things, but times is winding down. So we thought we'd pop on here and have a little conversation, check in with some of the men out here, some of the fathers, and see what y'all up to and have a little discussion. Um, I just recently put out a video and just talking about how fatherhood changed my life. And man, it leaves you speechless sometimes when you just think about all the things that go into being a father and every single moment that goes into it. Matter of fact, my son came to me today and said, uh, Dad, I was going to give you a gift, but I figured that since you already got me, I'm your best gift anyway. I'm sitting there just dying laughing like this guy, man. I'm like, okay, so you ain't got to give me nothing there, huh? You sufficient enough. But and in reality, man, he ain't lying, man. My youngest boy, my oldest boy is 6, and my oldest biologically, I got a 14-year-old daughter and a 6-year-old and a 1-year-old. But my boy is what changed my life, man. And we're gonna jump into some of that today. Got my boy Ray here, and Ray, you just had a baby, right?
Yeah, I just went ahead and did number 4. I'm
Mhm.
trying to build that fire team. So just had my first daughter.
Takes a village, huh?
Hey, she was born on Juneteenth.
Right.
So it was crazy because me and the wife, we was talking about how we wanted her. So we were told that her due date was July 9th, but the doctors scheduled a cesarean on July 2nd. So they do it a week earlier,
Right.
whatever, whatever. So we was like, man, or maybe it was me, but she was going with it. We was like, man, I wish we could have her born on July 4th,
Mm.
so we don't got to deal with and that way I don't got to pay for none of her birthday parties,
Right.
you
Right.
know.
Roll it all in
Yeah,
one.
just roll it all up in there
Yeah.
and say
Yeah.
those fireworks are for you, baby
Yeah.
girl.
Yeah.
But we kept talking about it, and then we're like, okay, it's not going to happen. The docs they're not going to plan a July 4th
Right.
delivery.
Right.
So I was like, man, I really wanted my baby girl born on Independence Day. So you see what's going on in the world right now, and it's just like we got what we asked
Yeah.
for. She was born on Juneteenth. So it's like for me and my family, she was born on
Yeah.
Independence Day.
Yeah.
She was born on the Independence Day.
And they rolling it out or pushing to have it recognized as a federal holiday as well. So that's gonna fall in line for you. Also. Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, yeah. But no, it was like one of those things where, you know, hey, you ask for a thing and you get it, but you don't know what it's gonna look like when you get it,
Yeah.
So for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. So yeah, man, talking all things fatherhood. Today we my dad turns 59 on Tuesday. So my dad's a pastor here in town, and he has 6 kids. So all of us decided to surprise him after church. And so at the end of church, he's like, why don't we all come together and take a picture? I'm like, Dad, how about we go down into the basement and take a picture on that wall? And everybody was down there set up. And so he came in, everybody was like, surprise. And all the kids got together for my pops, man. And my pops set the foundation for us, for me at least, to be the father that I am, and he was really surprised at that, and ate some chicken and ate some cake and all of that. So it's been a good day so far. Uh, my family got me this nice shirt here, uh, some other stuff. How many of y'all got some house shoes or a watch for Father's Day? That seems to be the norm. So I got the house shoes. I got a watch bracelet for my Apple Watch here, so it looked like a regular watch. But yeah, man, just enjoying being celebrated as a dad, and that's what I do for my line of work is working with fathers all day long. So just getting hit up by all the dads that I work with, them telling me what they doing with their kids, seeing all the pictures online, it's an amazing thing. It's an amazing feeling. But yeah, I wouldn't trade it for nothing in the world, man.
So we in not that any time is not interesting, but we're in some interesting times right now, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
Um, not just as fathers, but as men.
yeah,
Uh it's so I thought this might be a thing. That's why I called you. I was like, you know what, man? Let's just get her done.
yeah.
So I went over to I went over to the family house where my mom's at, and so we but so we had a lot of the fathers over, so the ladies ragged on us. Wow,
Hmm.
they did their thing for us. We had the brunch go on. I had my wine or whatever.
Yeah.
And so they gave us our gifts. So my collection, so we started with the most senior father in the room and we went down to the youngest
Oh,
father.
okay.
So
Y'all did a
that's
little ritual over
oh
there. That's good.
we kind of did like a ritual,
Yeah.
So I think I was the second to youngest father. I don't know how long that's going to
Hmm.
last, but so let's just talk about my gifts because that's all that's important. So I got my card. I got I actually got my Black Lives Matter t-shirt, which we're gonna get back to that later.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Cause
Let's
yeah,
talk
but
about it.
I got my t-shirt. Um I got a letter opener because in the Amazon world now, you get those boxes coming every day, and I'd be always complaining about opening letters and opening
Right, right.
boxes. So I got my gold letter opener, my
Oh yeah.
gold plated letter opener. Yeah, I got my thing going. Um, because in case people don't know, I just had number four child. She came into the world on Juneteenth.
Yeah.
So she just turned 48 hours old.
Yeah.
She just turned 48 hours old.
And this is your first girl.
This is my first girl. So they gave me some pink cigars, which I'm not about to light up a pink cigar, a bubblegum cigar. I'm about to light up a CAO Amazon Basin.
Yeah.
For those of you who know, now you know.
Right.
um, what else did I get? My mom, she know me, so she got me some Picasso um, highball glasses with a decanter.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got
Yeah.
set up nice.
My mom sent me a card with some money in it, and then I called her, and well, she called me, and I'm like, Mom, man, it must the money was a little short. What happened? She said, Was the car open, son? Man, the mailman must have opened the card and took your money out. She's like, I could have sworn I sent a couple $1,000. It was like $40, but my mom did the best she can, and every time, never miss a date. It's always early. She always on time. But I guess like speaking of interesting times, I guess we can maybe go here real quick. Coronavirus, protests, all of that stuff. Like, how do we as fathers communicate that to our kids? And I know with the whole COVID thing, especially early on, my boy just really didn't understand it, and he really wanted to go spend the night with his family. And so, as a man, as a father, I gotta really like consider his feelings and not like you just can't do it, but really take the time to explain it to him and put it in a way that he understands why he can't go to grandma's house right now, why he can't go to his cousin's house. Um, and then, the protests and all of that. The protest came right past my house the other day. And my son, like, Dad, what's going on? And so I had to break that down to him as well. And I don't think, as a black father, we can go here. Um, there's a need or yeah, necessity to have to explain these type of things to my son and raise him and give him the expectations of the world he's going to grow up in. And so we had that conversation. And you'd be surprised, man. People think like they're just kids. Man, these kids understand more than you think. And I always say, like, your kids bring out something in you that you never even knew was there. Your kids make you grow and mature and turn into something that if you allow it to. Some people might not allow it, but if you allow it, your kids turn you into something that you never really thought it'll turn you into. And so, I'm gonna pick at you a little bit, Ray. You got three boys, but now this your first girl. So anybody that know Ray, Ray, but I keep joking with him like
Everybody's saying I'm about to go soft.
yeah. Ray about to be the most soft K. He about to be with the leotardo, doing ballerina and all of that.
They claiming I'm about to go from killer to vanilla.
So yeah, man, if you want to just chime in on that, man.
Hey, so what I'm uh I'm hoping that I show my daughter the same respect I've shown my sons,
Yeah,
and that while I am their steward, they don't belong to me. That was always my attitude with my sons, that they don't they don't really belong to me.
right.
This is a responsibility that's been laid upon me. Um, this is kind of like being, you're not the president, but maybe you're in the military, but you work for the president. That kind of idea. So that's kind of how I treated my sons, where I'm not raising, even though I'm a narcissistic man, I'm not raising them for me. I'm raising them for this world, to raise new fighters to fight the good fight. And I'm hoping, I'm hoping I have that strength and courage and conviction to maintain that for my baby girl. Her name's Sirma. And I'm hoping that, I was holding her today, my first time feeding her, and I'm hoping that I maintain that attitude, because I was looking at her, and even though it's my baby girl, I'm already thinking about walking her down the aisle.
Yeah,
I was literally
yeah,
thinking about walking her down the aisle, and I'm hoping I had that strength and that courage and that conviction to never forget that while she is my daughter, she's a woman first.
right.
She's a woman
Yep.
first. So we'll see what time tells with how I handle the
Yeah.
situation.
And so what I hear you saying, like, there's a deep visionary aspect to us as fathers. We always want to like think ahead of our kids. It's just natural for us, like teaching my boy how to ride his bike. What I want to do is go and clear the path for him, move sticks, move rocks so he don't fall. And even when he fall, I'm there to pick him up. But that idea of clearing the path for them and setting them up the best that we can, so that we don't want them to have just a smooth ride, but we want them to have a smoother ride than we had, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I think that's the conflict, where we want inherently to get them out of the struggle, but we know for their benefit, we need to teach them how to get through the struggle.
yeah,
I mean, for those you ain't religious, please forgive me in advance, but I argue that that's what my God does for me.
yep,
He doesn't ever get me out of the struggle. He gets me through the struggle.
yeah. And I'm gonna go there. I'm religious. I'm a Christian, and just that concept of God, and the way in which He extends grace to us. I find that I've worked with over 1,000 fathers over the past 5 years, and sometimes you might catch a guy that is not willing to extend that same grace. And so it's not like you can just do whatever, but when you do something, know that dad is here, and dad understands, because I didn't seen everything you seen already. I got a teenager. Sometimes they think you haven't seen what they seen
Sometimes,
all the time.
sometimes.
And you got to think about it, like when you was young too. You like, man, you old, you don't know what you're talking about. But that's not the case. But man, as a father, man, you just deeply visionary, and you always looking at what they're going to become, right? I'm not talking to my son as a 6-year-old. I'm talking to him as a 10-year-old. I'm speaking to him as a 14-year-old, right? I'm speaking to, it's just it's daily lessons, man. There's lessons in every conversation that we have. It's amazing.
You know, I I think there's levels to fatherhood.
Mm.
So I took an Uber, you know, because I'm gangster. I don't care about nothing. I took an Uber in the last 48, 36 hours. Well, I don't know, 72 hours. And so my Uber driver, he was a man. And he, you know, they do their small talk to get their tips, whatever,
Right.
whatever. And short ride. I mean, the ride probably wasn't 10, 15 minutes, but what that man made me think about in that conversation, because the details of the conversation are not really the point. Um, there's different kinds of fathers because I was watching today online on social media. I was watching guys talk about their fathers. I was watching guys talk about being a father.
Hmm.
I was watching some guys actually very commendable handling the situation where maybe their biological father wasn't number one dad, but there was another guy who came into the
Yeah.
picture. So I was watching these conversations or these open sharings about fatherhood, and it just made me think that there's levels to being a father. Um, so yes, there's the biological fatherhood. There's even the stepfatherhood, but you know, there's even the mentorship. You know, that you might not call your mentor a father,
Hmm.
but there I argue, I guess. I argue there's levels to fatherhood, whether you're a father to a son or a stepson or a village
I, I
or a
call
city.
I call it father figures. So in my line of work, I talk to guys, and deeply ingrained in all of them, if they didn't have their dad, is this resentment towards him. And I always say, like, if you ask somebody about their dad, you usually gonna get the worst story ever or the best story ever. There's really no in between.
And before you go on, I will say this: whether it's the worst story ever or the best story ever, I argue they're equally
Yep.
impactful.
And
But
they're
go on.
equally important. But so what I try to do is help them identify a father figure. So maybe there was a football coach when you were younger. Maybe there was a teacher. Maybe there was a pastor. Maybe there was a stepdad. Man, let's not eliminate uncles. You know what I mean? And aunties too. But a lot of us come from families where, we got brothers and sisters and nobody want to see their family fail. So uncle steps in, like many of my sisters, you know.
You know, I want to get into that later. How every Father's Day it's this. Do the women get credit on Father's Day? I want to get
Yeah,
into that
yeah,
later.
yeah.
Okay. All right, bet.
But yeah, man, just helping them identify a father figure. And I think that's what you was hinting at. Like, we have these role models, and it's for us men to take that role and take that leadership. And my quote and my saying is always, we not only fathers to our children, but we fathers to the entire community. Each kid that we talk to, we can say something so impactful that when you turn, I'm 31, but even now, like, I got the little boys and girls coming to me like, man, when I was 10, you said this. When I was 11, my dad was talking about you, and now you got YouTube and all of that. They start following you and paying attention to those things. So, man, we not only fathers to our kids, we have a responsibility as men in the world as leaders.
So I would really like this to become a conversation tonight. Of course, listen in, join with us, but we have this set up to where if you want to jump in on this conversation, hit me or Charmaine up on private messenger through Facebook or YouTube or whatever, and we can actually get you in on the call. We'd love to hear from anyone and everyone that wants to have a conversation with us. Um, of course, in español por supuesto. So let's just have a conversation tonight. I feel like a broken record, but I'm arguing that a big part of what's wrong with this world right now is we don't know how to talk to each other or with each other. So Why don't we just call it that tonight? Let's just practice having
and,
conversations.
and just to chime in on that, for that guy that's like, I can't add input to this. I don't know, what to say. Man, whatever you got to say is important. I don't care what type of father you are. If you're a father, man, you got anything you say can resonate with somebody else. And this is a problem, right? Not only do we not talk to each other, where was I? We as men, we tend to hold things in, right? But if we just only go and express it, talk to other men, and find out, that's the thing, the Rambo mentality we talk about. Thinking you can do this on your own. You can't. You can't. A marriage, fatherhood, business, whatever. There's nothing in life that you can do on your own. So you need that guidance. And the Bible says something like, in the multitude of counsel, there's victory. You have to have that counsel around you, and you have to be willing to share, because if you got something going on and you ain't telling nobody, how can it get fixed? So I deal with that a lot with the fathers I work with. Like, I do a group every week, and it's the third or fourth group before a guy really starts opening up. But what happens is, because I'm so willing to open up and the guys around me are willing to open up, then that guy feels comfortable open up. So I'm hoping that this conversation, somebody watches and be like, man, I resonated with whatever something he said. I'm going through the same thing. Let me jump on and add input. Let me inbox Charmaine. Let me inbox Ray and add input on whatever it is they talking about.
You, you know, um, I just think about the fact that so I saw something today on Facebook. I mean, let's keep it in our normal sync
Mhm.
of social media, technology, in the world today. I saw I saw a father post something about shout out to all the fathers who did it all by themselves.
Mm.
I don't know what that means. No one has done anything by themselves. No one. I don't care if she left. I don't care if there's no government programs. If that child is still breathing, I guarantee you did not do it on your own. So I think a big part of it is us realizing that, you know, this blessing of family, of fatherhood is while you're a leader, it's accepting the fact that you can't lead by yourself. You can't do it on your own. It's it's a gift, it's a curse. You've heard all that talk. I've got 4 kids now. Um, this day is a bittersweet day for me because I got 2 of my kids. So my daughter again, my youngest, she's less than 2 days old. She's in my life. I got 2 kids living with me. I have 2 kids with my ex, and that's America. That's
Mhm.
the world of not America. The split family. So
Blended,
we
yeah,
probably the blended family. So we probably should get in that later.
yeah,
Let's not dance around
yeah,
that.
no doubt.
Um, but it's that bittersweet moment where I'm not hugging all 4 of my kids, but I'm absolutely thankful that I have 4 kids. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
That is what I argue that true definition of stewardship and appreciation for what it means to be a parent in general.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Just continuing this, it's Father's Day, and I think I want to jump into that now. So let's talk about how every Father's Day, um, you start seeing this conversation about women saying, "Do we get our thanks on Father's Day?" Let's talk about that.
I'm gonna just say it. You are not the father, like more. You're because you hear it so many times. I'm the father and the mama. No, it don't work like that. So, like, just to get on the guy that said something like, shout out to all the dads that did it on their own. No, you didn't. And even though there might have been a split in the mother of your children is has the ups and all this court stuff. We can go there too. I know it's those things. Still in all, she came before the kid. Without her, the kid would not be here. And so I hate when somebody be like, uh, my kids come before anything. No, literally, the guy or the girl you were in a relationship came before the kid. But to your point, man, you do get the moms, some of them, come on there and say, I'm both a mama and a daddy. And so I do these events, I do the daddy daughter dance every year. And so many times I get hit up like, what about the mommy son dance? I could do that, but if that's something that's in your spirit as a mom, put it on. I'll support it. But like I said, many times you get it where you hear that saying, I'm both mama and the daddy. That's not only not possible, but at the same time, it just don't make sense.
Well, you know what, bro? I'm gonna go there. You know what? I have too many friends as it is. So let me go ahead and cut my Facebook friends list down. I'm gonna say it. If a woman hears that there's a day called Father's Day, and she says, what about celebrating the mothers on Father's Day? Or to my boy's point, if she hears that there's a daddy daughter dance and she goes, when are you going to put on the mommy daughter dance? When are you as a man going to put on the mommy daughter dance? For me, bro, all I heard you say is all lives matter. That's all I heard you say. All lives matter.
Right.
That's all I heard you say. Because I mean, there's levels to this. I don't know where to start, so I'm just going to start. Um, I look at, I'm going to speak about our community, the Black community. What I'm not going to speak for the Black community. I'm going to speak on my perception of the Black community. So let me clarify this. This is not me trying to be Candace Owens or Cornell West. So it don't matter which side. I'm one man, and if you say that what comes out of my mouth is stupid, you're probably right. I'm just one man.
Good setup.
I guess my attitude is this. I see a world of single parents, both sides, telling children that we don't need anyone else. You don't need anyone else. We're fine. And I understand the reasoning behind that. You want your child to feel safe and you want your child to feel secure. But I argue there might be a cost to that conversation. Let's just talk it through logically. And I'm okay if you say this is not an appropriate conversation to talk through logically. If you are a single parent telling your child they need no one but themselves and you, what if you were training your child to grow up and they engage in relationships and they believe because you told them that you only needed one parent, that's how they choose as adults to engage in relationships. And they do not feel the necessity to stay with their partner because you taught them there is nothing wrong, or forget the word wrong, that it is 100% nailing it with success if they leave. So I'm gonna talk to the men. If a mother tells a male son that we're completely fine, just me and you. We don't need anybody else. It's just me and you. And he grows up to be a man and he engages in relationships with women and he has children of his own. Is it crazy if he then leaves her and says, why do you need me to stay? My mama didn't need nobody. Why do you need somebody? I know I lost some friends with that one.
Man, and just to add to that, that's one of those things where from an understanding point standpoint. I understand it a little bit. Um, because in the past you may have been raised like that. Someone may have said that to you. So it takes a level of maturity for you to realize that, and you going through it. The single parent claiming that they don't need nobody, but in all reality, whenever they face an issue, they calling somebody, whether it be some type of assistance, whether it be, a job, you know what I mean? All those things are things that support you in your journey of parenting. So you claiming that you don't need nobody, that's saying you don't need a job, you don't need, something to help you pay the bills, none of that. But what happens is, and I see this a lot, with a lot of women, and I might lose some friends with this too, but a mindset of their mother taught them, you don't need nobody, you all good by yourself. But she's only speaking from a viewpoint of what she went through. So I have to be conscious, even with myself, not to inflict some of the wounds that I went through on my kids. And I have to realize when I'm doing that. And I don't think many of my mother was single mother or whatever, and spit out some of those things as well. But she was only doing it because she only knew what she knew. And we always say you don't know. So it's for that person to get real with themselves and ask themselves, why am I saying this? And when I say this, what impact does it have not only on my child, but on me? Because what you create is this kid that they don't need nobody but you. That's what you're telling them. So now at 21, they call your ass to come help them wash the dishes or fix a flat or whatever the case may be.
Or fix their grades.
Yeah, or their grades. So you cannot say you don't need nobody. That's that. I'm gonna just be extreme. That's mental terrorism, if you ask me.
I argue that I went from, one of the definitions of maturity for me was going from I don't need nobody to saying I need everybody. I call everybody when I got something going on. You know, you redefine the definition of strength, where the strength is I can do it on my own. I don't need no help, to the strength to be aware of yourself in the moment and the situation and say to yourself, nah, I'm calling for backup. I'm calling for reinforcements. You redefine the definition of winning. You redefine the definition of navigating the world properly. So, you know, coming back to being a father, um, what is the definition of winning? So maybe we should dig into that. What is the definition of winning when our children are looking at us? When they look at daddy, what is the definition of winning?
Yeah. And ignorance is not an excuse nowadays. So like just circling back, like I can understand somebody only knowing what they know, but now you have so many different examples out there, and as human beings we operate like that. We see something and we say that looks good or that doesn't look good, so I don't want that. I just bought a house and I'm looking at the neighbors landscaping. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna take some tips from that, do this, do that. And so we can't say that we just don't know, because there's so much out there, so much information out there, so many examples of winning, that you can be like, and you don't have to necessarily subscribe totally to someone's train of thought, but you take bits and pieces, the things that you're exposed to. The issue is you don't allow yourself to be exposed to different setups of family. Um, and you don't engage or feel comfortable around it, or comfortable with getting into a winning mindset that So much so that you don't even do it. You know, it's something called a fight or flight mentality, where if I'm not extremely fighting, I'm just running away from it. Many people are not willing to go through that fight. And then this goes back to what we talked about earlier, realizing that it's not about you. Once you become a parent, if you didn't know this, I'm gonna give you a little bit of a little secret. Just a little secret. Just listen to this. It's not about you no more. It's not about you no more, man. It's not about you. It's not about you once you have kids. Really, even as a human being, it's not about us. We are called to serve. We are called to be stewards of whatever area that we have dominion over. And I always sum up, being a father or a man is a huge responsibility, meaning you have to be able to respond. Just to break that word down, you need to have the ability to respond. If you're not seeking the information that you need, if you're not willing to go through the fight, you will not be able to respond, and you won't be responsible.
So I want to kind of segue that responsibility. I want to segue that to a question. This is actually my sister. Um, so she asked, "Is there a way where single parents can uplift their children and let them know that they can be okay without a second parent, while also instilling the notion that this shouldn't be, isn't the goal?" So basically, how do you build up your child to be strengthened and proud of who they are? So, you don't want them growing up with shame or feeling that they're wrong, but at the same time, aspiring to something more. I argue this is no different than a parent who maybe didn't go to college telling their children, "You need to go to school." Let's dig deeper into that. I would say it's possible. It's possible to raise a child and say, "We are human." And maybe that's where I want to go with this. I argue it's possible to not raise a child with the lies that the world raises children with. The lie that we must all be perfect. You look at social media today, it's a whole bunch of people faking through life, pretending to be something they're not. Instead of pretending to be perfect, why don't we raise children to be transparent? It is possible to be transparent. It is impossible to be perfect. So we can say, "I was raised by a single parent." We can say, "I was raised by parents that didn't have college degrees." We can say, "I was raised by parents that are not US citizens, but living in the US. They take that risk every day just to give me a chance at a better life." But at the same time, we can say our parents are raising us to be something more, to do more.
Yeah. And just to chime in on, sure, they can be okay, but is that the goal? Right? You want your kids to thrive. You want them to be well. You want them to be excellent. And so I say that just the mindset of trying to survive without a second parent. First of all, it's not a second parent. It's your parent. It's your only parent. And so from a physiological standpoint, the blood that runs through you, how can I sit up and tell a boy he doesn't need the knowledge or the wisdom, good or bad, from his father or mother? They need to know that story. They need to know his history. And so what happens is, for that kid that grows up and their parents tell them that they'll be okay without that, 100% sure this is what I do for a living. When they turn 12, 13, 14, they're seeking their father. They're seeking talking to a guy did 12 years in prison, and he He was unsure of himself when he came back on engaging his son, and he was nervous. But what he found was once he did engage, he just showed me the videos yesterday. His son was just so elated, just so excited to learn about his dad. They don't care about all of that stuff that went on between the parents. Sure, it comes into play, but I just argue that at all costs, you need both for your kid to thrive and not just be okay. You need both for them to have a level of understanding that they came from two people. They have two sets of blood in them, and they have extended family as well. So, my daughter, 14-year-old, my stepdaughter, I have to be understanding that although I'm here, I've been in her life since she was 5. Biological dad ain't seen her since she was 1. Although I'm here and I'm responsible and doing what I need to do for her, she still has this longing for her biological dad. And I would never deny her that. I often encourage her to find, I just recently told her, create a Facebook page and reach out to your family on your dad's side because you need that. Because it's not just moms keeping kids away from the biological dad. It's also when they get in a relationship with somebody else, that person co-signing that thought or that mindset and saying, yeah, you don't need him. So even though they got two parents, there's somebody saying you don't need that person, even though that's their blood. The more the better. This is what I told you. You got two dads. You got 6 grandma. What is it? You know what I mean? You got all type of family support around you. Use all of them. Her birthday coming up. Call them. That helped my pockets. You know what I mean? Call your mom, your grandma, your aunties. It takes a village, man. And I believe that we really got out of that mindset when America just is really driven by this individualist mindset. We are not individuals. We are a community.
And it's funny you say that because real family, that's not people who say what you want to hear when you want to hear it. Like I said, I got the blended family, whatever you want to call it. And my mom, she'll be saying things I don't want to hear,
Right.
but I need to hear.
Mm.
You split with a person, but you got kids together, and you'll be like, man, forget them. And I'm blessed that I have family in my corner, and not just my mom. I have family in my corner who's saying, yeah, Ray, we hear you, but it ain't about you.
Yep.
You know, do it. It's about those kids. It's about those boys. So I would say, just to sum it up there for single parents, remember that when they say it takes a village, what you really should be hearing is that it's not just about the two of you. You have a family, that other person has a family. When y'all fall, when y'all stumble, it can still be viewed as there should be other people around going to that idea of that idea of what who is the focus, who is the person, is it about those children, or is it about something else that maybe it shouldn't be? So maybe that's how we'd handle that one. It should always be about the kids, and if it's about the kids, those kids need everybody, not just one person, not just two people. They need the village as a whole.
Oh, I think I caught you. That's your sister there, right?
Oh yeah, so we finished that one.
She
We
just
can
wrote
keep
another
we
one.
you wanna give her another one?
Um,
Oh, let me say this. So, like I said, we'd love to hear some other fathers jump in, and not just fathers, but anybody. Let's talk about Father's Day, Father's item. So, anybody, hit me up on the side. I'll send you the link. We can bring you in. You got your smartphone or your computer. We can get you on video and jump in on this vibe with us for sure.
yeah, but yeah, man, that idea that it takes a village, man. And I was sitting back thinking about this. Like when I came up, I knew enough people in my community, as rough as it was. I knew everybody. And if I told my mom going over to Vontae house or whatever, she already knew they mom. Or I'm going over here, and when I go there, the mom will be like, "Here, take this to your mom," some hand-me-down clothes or whatever, or some food or whatever. But nowadays, it is a little bit more divided. It's a little bit more separated. Communities have been broken up, gentrification, all of that stuff, and so it's not as tight knit. So we do have to find a way to stay connected. And although we are connected many times on social media, I say that it's for us to connect our kids with each other as well. What happens is, they're going to school and they're just like, they just know someone's father or their mother um, from hearsay, but they don't know them on a deep, intimate level. So I seek opportunities to connect my kids with people that the family is not just this, my friend. No, the entire family is my come over so that we can expose our kids to different ways of living, you know.
So I see another question here. Is there a way where single parents can uplift their children and let them know? Well, we just did that one. Let's go to the next one. How do we best bring in father figures for children when a father isn't around because they have died? So I'm going to say this first and I'm going to hand it to Charmaine. The question assumes that the only time a parent is gone is when the father is gone. I argue this is a narrative that is spread, but it's a false narrative. Just as often, there are many single fathers raising children on their own, and that this false narrative, it doesn't make it impossible to raise a child, but it shows our true allegiance to raising a child. Because if we truly care about raising children, the question shouldn't be, how do we best bring in a father figure when a child doesn't have a father because the father died? The question should be, how do we bring in the missing parent when the missing parent has died? Because the last time I checked statistics, women die just as often as men. And I really want to pass this off to Charmaine because Charmaine, his entire program is about fathers, very often single fathers for various reasons, including the mother has passed away. The mother, and like we both seen this, the mother has mental health issues and she can't be the mother she wants to be. So while this might not be the popular conversation in the news and online, this is a very real situation for many, many children. You.
Yeah, I think the focus is in the wrong direction. I mean, if a father has died, I'm more concerned about the mother's well-being. And I'm trying to figure out how to best support her. So in that time of grief, it's going to be a rough period. It's going to be a rough transition. Well, how do we get her back to health? And this is something where it's not even. So because like if it happens to a dad, it's like, figure, you know what I mean? Figure out what's your next step. No one cares. Not I usually talk in extremes, but I would be concerned about her well-being because what happens in the grief process is she'll go through phases and then her health will start regaining. And then there's a potential for, her to meet someone else. And then she's going to want to make sure that it's the right person. And so then she needs a group of women who are coaching her and guiding her through that process. Not that we forget about the kid, but that mother's mindset, because the father died, is going to be all over, right? I dealt with the situation where my coworker's friend dad had died in a car accident, And sure, they were concerned about the children, but they were more concerned about her and how. And so we figured out things to help support her financially, and things that we can do as a community to help her. Most recently, someone I knew from a personal level, RIP Larita, she just passed through due to violence in Chicago. And everybody is seeking to support the kids at the moment, but I don't know her like all the way on a personal level. I don't know the dad, but I'm eager to find that father and see what we can do to him. I'm wondering what's his thoughts, where he's at mentally. You know what I mean? You lose the mother of your kids. I don't care if you didn't like her or you didn't like him. It's still a connection there where you think about it like my is going to be affected by this. So I have to figure something out in that moment. And so there's no plain answer to this. It's just one of those things that's just terrible. But you learn to adjust as you go. You raising a kid with the mentality, just circling back with you don't need nobody. They can then start harboring that in like, oh, I didn't need him anyway. And then that's even worse. No, nothing's worse than death, but that's similar to them just writing them off if they was alive.
I would say maybe another way to think about it, if I guess from my own personal experiences, I in my past I've rehabbed houses, been in the real estate game, and I always had this rule that I would never buy a house in a neighborhood I was not willing to live in myself. So a couple times, me and my boys, now I got a daughter, but me and the boys in the past, we live in neighborhoods, and maybe there wasn't visible active fathers throughout the day. And me being a father, I decided that being a father figure meant not just being a father to my sons, but being a father, period. So I engaged this with the idea of saying, hey, this is who I'm going to be. And without me even wanting it, I found that I would wake up one morning and there's 15 kids, no exaggeration. There's 15 kids out in my yard wanting for someone to be fatherly, to the point where originally I wasn't ready for it, you know. So I think what I'm trying to say is, for a world, for I don't know if you're a woman or an organization, it doesn't matter. But for a woman or an organization or a world saying, what do we do when there's not a father there? I would argue, allow men who are fatherly access,
Mhm.
because I personally do not view a world that is open to letting men be fatherly.
I mean, that's straight up there. I mean, as I do my work often, I'm in a social work field. And so 81% of social workers are women. Not a bad thing. I think it's great actually. But I do trainings to those women on how to work with fathers, right? And I take them through a process. There's implicit bias there or whatever. But since I've been doing those trainings, man, every time I'll be like, when I start off, I ask the audience to raise. I'm like, where the fathers at in here? And it's like two or three hands every time. And so when you talk about allowing access to fathers, not just from a community, big brother, big sister, volunteer standpoint, that's great. We got volunteers, but from a professional level. So that number of 81% of social workers are women also translates over to education. We know that there's a lack of male representation in the schools. So, if I'm talking to a organization, or from a policy standpoint, what are we doing to continue to add that male representation in the schools, in programs, and things like that, because it's often overlooked. And to me, fatherlessness is one of the deepest social issues out there. I can talk statistics and all of that, homelessness, teenage pregnancy, the way they develop the motor skills and all of that in school is greatly contributed to, positively, if a father is there, or if he's not, negatively if he's not there. So we have to be conscious of what's going on in the world, and really making it our best effort to include that diversity in that realm. And so what we see going on right now with the whole Black Lives Matter thing, a lot corporations are like, oh, we need that. We need to diversify the team in response to what's happening. Um, and so there's a lot of positions being opened up. There's a lot of things happening. The same level of emergency is needed when it comes to these kids and them having a male role model in their lives, not just fathers, but father figures. So great question, Cody.
Another direction with it, I would ask the world back, do you want men, or do you want your idea of men? Do you want fathers, or do you want your idea of fathers? Even with Black Lives Matter, do all lives matter, or do all lives that align with your idea how a life should be lived matter?
Yeah.
That's really where these all sink and where they all come into. I'm gonna take a selfish moment here. Oh, Scott Lindsay is rats.
Okay. Yeah, it's just a piggy. I'll go. You want to talk to him?
I was just
Okay.
gonna say, oh, Scott Lindsay, thank you, sir. Miss Sirma, she's now, let's do the math here. She's now 2 days and 2 hours old. Um, Sirma Miller, Elise, Leon Jordan Robert. Yes, I named her like royalty, so future husband, get ready. Um, yeah, my baby girl, she doing her thing right now.
Ray's done the math, Scott. He's constantly doing the math.
I plan ahead. I plan ahead. I try to plan ahead. Don't mean it's gonna go the way I want it to go, but yeah, this is
But
my first daughter, so um, I'm pretty sure I'm not ready, but I'm trying to be.
and just this idea of fatherhood, like, let's go there. George Floyd, watching that whole situation and watching how people brought up his past and all of that, like they were like we perfect people. Like your ass don't got skeleton closet. But if people can look at this from a family standpoint, dad, this man was a father. And I saw a clip the other day where the daughter was on Steven Jackson, his brother, NBA player. She was on his shoulders and she said, "My daddy changed the world." And he said, "What you say?" And she said, "My daddy changed the world." But you got people throwing around this bullshit, not looking at him as a human, when at the end of the day, any American, I don't care who you is, all you want to do is take care of your kids. All you want to do is take care of your family. Even old Candace Owens, somebody sent me the video. I wasn't gonna watch it. I looked at it the first 30 seconds like, this is stupid. But I finally did go and just look at it. And she said, the black community is the only people that lifts up the lowest of their people. And talking about being a martyr, and he was not a martyr and all of that. And my guy Steve, we was talking about this, and he said, thank God we got people like that in the world. Thank God that we got people who intentionally seeks to lift up what's considered the lowest in their community. And I think people just really losing that, having a huge disconnect with that family aspect. That's the American way. Like, we all about family, and all we want to do is take care of our kids. But this lady said, um, we the only ones that lift thank God we got people like that out there that goes about and wants to lift up the people who are considered the lowest. That's the way, if especially Christians or whatever, if you believe in something, you know what I mean. What do you say? If you desire to be first, you'll be last. So you want to intentionally uplift, and whether it's black people, and I'm not of the mindset of I'm inferior to nobody, but translating over to fatherhood, there are some people that are going through some things that in the court process, and they feel defeated, and the numbers are drastically high in suicide when it comes to men, and the large contribution to that is because they're going through divorce. Man, just listen to some of the dads I talk to, like, that stuff can really drive you to a zero state, they call it, or a dark place. And so we need to be intentional about the social realm of things. Of sure, there's many different causes, and you don't have to subscribe to all of them, but there does need to be a focus on the fathers, and on the theme of today, fatherhood. There's some fathers out there that's really battling and really struggling. That's my line of work, talking to these guys like, man, look, it's rough, but this is what we made for. This is what we called to do. Like, we got to deal with it. And that's the motivation I have to give them, because if I don't, they get into this state of mind that they feel like nobody is there, and then they don't jump on the call like this. They just keep everything harbored into themselves, and the worst case scenario happens. Not just even talking about suicide, but they start spitting out venom to their kids. They start spitting out venom to their jobs, and they start making decisions based on emotions that lead to negative consequences.
You, you, you know, I just want to touch on her. Then hopefully we stop talking about old Candace Owens. Um, so she did make the comment about black people are the only people who lift up their worst.
Right.
So here's the thing. That's a lie. Black people don't have an award for the lowest of the low criminal. There's an entire channel called Black Entertainment Television, and every year they have an awards ceremony. And I heard someone else say this. They give out awards for people in the community. What they do not do is hand out an award to the person with the most felonies, with the most bodies on them, that's moved the most weight. They don't do that. So, this idea that we hand out awards, that we lift up our worst, is utterly ridiculous. Um, Candace Owens represents a part of culture that chooses to focus on certain things. So maybe because there's a rapper or a musician that is claiming that they've done some things, whether they've done it or not, I don't know. I wasn't there. But because they, then that is all of us lifting them up and celebrating them. I personally see that as no different than The Sopranos.
Hmm.
I doubt when Italian Americans are sitting around the table celebrating Italian American culture, they're saying that the highest epitome of them is mobsters and gangsters. I doubt that's what they're celebrating at Thanksgiving. The same way I know that my black is not saying, and thank you for that. We don't have pictures on the wall of drug dealers. We don't have that. So Candace Owens, she has a crowd that she serves. She does her dance, and people have seen me make that claim. Candace Owens is a dancer. She dances on stage for certain types of people. None of those people look like her. The same way a woman will dance at a local club, and none of the people in the audience are women.
Hmm.
So I see her dancing on stage, no different than those women locally dancing on stage. But as far as what fatherhood is and the struggle, we are not perfect, but just think about how beautiful that is being a father, being a parent. But today it's Father's Day, being a father to where no matter how many mistakes you've made, your kid doesn't really care. When I'm talking to grown men who are angry at their fathers or they're dislocated or disconnected from their fathers, it's not because their father wasn't perfect. It's usually because their father wasn't there. I mean, I've met guys where, let's just say, their father wasn't citizen of the year in any of the years they were alive. But the fact that their father was there, that was enough. And they loved their father for that. So it's about being there. Now, what does that mean? There is a portion where a father controls if he's there or not. But in today's society, there's a portion where he doesn't control. And we know that works both ways. When parents maybe don't work out relationally, unfortunately, parents can use children as weapons. I always think about the movie Hellboy 2 to be exact, where there was these two twins where whenever one of them got cut, the other one felt the same pain.
Ooh, what movie is that?
That was Hellboy
Oh
2. I
yeah,
just
yeah,
said
yeah.
it.
Oh, I didn't.
I
Okay,
yeah,
I thought you
Hell
said there was a
no, Hellboy
movie.
2. So it was the two twins, the brother and the sister, to where when one got cut or stabbed or hurt, the other one felt the pain. To where at the end of the movie, the brother was trying to do bad things, and the sister stabbed herself in the heart to kill her brother herself. I argue that being a parent, that is what happens when you have children. Any cut that you put on that other parent, you are putting on that child.
Mm.
So for the mature parent, it creates quite the conundrum where you want to fight back, but you know any blow that you deliver to that other parent, you are in real time
Yep.
delivering to that child.
Hmm.
It's quite the struggle
Yeah.
for those of us going through it.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, I'll 5 years I've been doing the dedicated dads program. And early on, man, I just was not so, not so much naive, but I was young in the game. I just only had one kid biologically, and you know now I got three kids. But early on, I just had this fire, like man, all fathers should be like this. All fathers should be doing it. I argue should is an irrational word, but that's another topic. But what I came to find as I started understanding the dads that I was working with was they going through some stuff deeper than I thought. But I was only able to know that by being willing to engage in conversation with them. And so I remember one of the dads said, "How old are your kids?" Um, and I told him the ages, you know, and he got teenagers. So here I am. I'm this young guy, 27 at the time. Um, with this mindset of fatherhood, but I'm talking to guys that got 20-year-old kids, 16-year-old kids. But he just said, "Hey, talk to me when your kid turns 15 to 16." Um, and so I had to like think about that and say there's levels to this whole fatherhood thing. And just to tie into the whole fight thing, as I started going and doing what I do, people started thinking the program was only for like what they call high risk fathers, or they call them non-custodial fathers, or you know, guys that's going through situations and they are at a certain income level. But as the group started to grow, different people started to come in. I don't know if it was me or whatever, but then I even engaging with you and see, I'm like, damn, there's people making 250 a year, 150 a year, going through the same struggles, going through the same things. And so I had to stop thinking like it's completely on them. There's many different variables to this, and it's so deep. I honestly try to get people and prevent people from even going through the court process. My idea is the courts separate more than they bring together. And so what happens is you get to the court and people are like, oh, I can use this against her or I can use this against him. And it's like all these tools, like I got ammo now. You go to court to get bullets. You got the gun already and you go to court to get bullets. But man, it was just expanding my knowledge and engaging with different varieties of fathers. It's like, man, you going through that too? You went through a divorce and the financial stuff was well. Um, damn. How does it stretch all the way to that point? I thought you was protected a little bit if you had finances. Now that guy is able to fight a little bit longer, but I always tell the guys that I work with, like, no, the guys that's going through that, I'm like, man, you got the means and you got the power to fight. I'm just thinking about that 16, 17-year-old boy that don't, and he don't even understand court terminology. He don't understand what all of this stuff means, and he going through it without the means. It's like this shit is deep.
I e- e- I I agree. How it's not how me and you met, but one of the ways we linked up where you had your group of guys that, let's just say, maybe they were on average making 50K or less. And I was moving in circles with a certain group where these were single dads that probably were averaging, I'd say 80K or more, averaging, you know, where half the guys or more were used to making six figures. And I remember talking to you about your group, and I visited a couple times,
Yep.
and it that was one of the first things that stood out to me, that when a family breaks, when there's a dispute between the parents, I don't care if the daddy is making 40K a year, 30K a year, ain't got no job, or he's making 250K a year. What quickly became known is the conversation is the same. So I remember talking to you about that, where I'm sitting in this room with a whole bunch of guys where they're like, man, if I could just double my pay and make 40K a year, then I'll be set. I'll fix all these things. And I felt bad because I'm like, nah, bro, that's not that's not how this works. I know cats pulling 200 and it's the same. So what you find is money does a lot of great things. What it doesn't do is fix relationships. Money is a transactional motivator. Money may delude you into thinking that it affects relationships, but money's transactional. Relationships, and that's what we're talking about, fathers and Father's Day and parenting, that is relational, and it is not an impossible transition, but it's a difficult one for sure. I mean, just think of the joke. Can someone buy your love? They might be able to buy you. They might be able to rent you, but can they buy your love? Coming back to children. Children, when they come into this world and they look at you, they don't do a credit check.
Yeah.
Children don't do a credit check. Children don't ask you how much money you got in the bank. They don't ask you about your 401k. They just love you for who you are. It's a relation. It's not transactional in any shape, form, or fashion. Even when we fail them, which we do, we fail them. Even when they say they don't love us, they do.
Yeah. And that's a perfect segue to what the idea of everything that I do. What I try to do is get the guy to realize that at the end of the day, how can you navigate these things that you're going through for the best outcome for your kids. Let your kids be the motivator, and that will carry you through. Um, and it's a fight. I got this thing. It's called Frontline Fathers, and I thought of this idea based on everything going on. Essential workers and people like, what do you mean I'm essential and all of that. We got to be on the front line for our kids, meaning we got to be the first responders. You know what I mean? We got to be the first to respond emotionally, mentally, relationally, financially. Notice I said that last, because those other things come first. But like you said, kids are not so caught up in the details of everything, right? Children spell love Time. And so you see it in the courts where it's like people say you're not a good dad because you ain't make your child support payments. But what I haven't seen the courts mandate is you have to spend 30 hours of your week with the kid. I don't care what you're going on. There's a time mandate. Children spell love Time. If we claiming we love these kids, then we must add that into the equation. And this is what I always say, and I always get hit up on the side when I post this one. The courts and the world does not realize that the fathers that are not paying child support, or going through this thing in the courts, or how the world perceive them, the courts don't realize that that same man is the same kid that you claim you were protecting 15 years ago. It's the same guy. It's the same person.
I'll say this. I sit at a lot of I always talk about the tables that I sit at. I've never met an adult who said this. I've never met an adult that said, "Yeah, my dad wasn't around, but that check came through every month, so he cool." I've never met that adult. I have met the adult who said, "I cut that check every month, hoping that when they turned 18, they'd reconnect with me, and they didn't." I have met that many times. The man who told himself, "I'm going to keep cutting that check." Because, we love to talk about the guy who doesn't pay.
Right.
What we don't hear about
Yeah.
is the man who does pay. And he says, "I'm going to pay, hoping that my children realize that by paying, this is the only way I'm able to show that I love them, given the situation." I've never met, I have met many guys who have said, "I paid all the way through 21, or if they go to college, continue to 24, whatever." And then the child never reached out to them. I have never met the child who said, "Well, you know what? He wasn't around, but he cut those checks, so he's cool."
Right. Right.
So I'll even make it less dramatic. So right now with COVID, I'm working from home, and my previous children, even before my previous marriage, it ended in divorce, of course. Um, but even when I was married, I was a military man, so I wasn't around. So even though this is my fourth child that just came, the third child is actually the first child I was around during these early developmental years, to where I am now realizing what I missed out on with the first two children. I was one of those men who told myself, "Well, I'm providing, I'm bringing money, I'm putting food on the table, so that's what a father does." Now with COVID and the nature of the work that I do now, I am working from home, and he's at home because the daycares are all shut down, and I'm like, "Wow, I am now seeing all those things that I didn't see and I didn't know." We have this connection, we have this bond where it's just amazing that I didn't know this is what you miss out on. And I will say this, that time component, I consider myself a businessman. and a hustler and a go-getter. I'm not gonna say I'll never again take a job that doesn't allow me to work from home 100% of the time, but it's now a factor. It's now a factor where before it wasn't a factor. If you offered me $1,000,000 a month, but I only got to go home 5 days a year, I wouldn't have had to think about it.
Mm.
I would be like, "Bet, I'm gonna do it." Now it's like, what is the situation with me getting
Yeah.
around my children? So that time component, as you mentioned, it is deeply, deeply impactful, um, to the point where I think we as men, we're often content with those small moments where the kid wants to wear our shoes, or those small moments they have, they try to be like us, and we're like, "Oh, okay, that's good, we're here. That's proof that we're here." And, you know, actually, our guy that was talking earlier, Scott Lindsay, I think I stole this from him, where he talks about historically in the past, well, I don't know what we want to call it, back in the good old days or
Yeah.
back in the old days, you know, when a kid became a certain age, especially the sons, when the father went to work, that son went with his father. We're talking a long time ago. And he learned about being a male. He learned about being a man by watching not just his father, but watching his father interact with other men. And through modern society, through technology, we went to this world where you went from bringing your child to work most of the time to where you bring them to work once a year. Bring your child to work day,
Mhm.
bring your daughter to work day. And while, quote unquote, we live with more leisure and more comfort than ever before, I argue there is always a cost to every decision. And m- it's not a maybe, it's a fact. I argue that if you take 100 children and ask them, what does your parent do? Not what is the title of their job? What do they do for a living? Most children can't answer that
Mhm.
question. So, as fathers setting that example, if we spend most of our day not around them to give that example, how can they answer such a question if they see so little of us? If we leave before they wake up and we come home after they go to bed, how can they possibly have a chance at answering such a question?
Yeah. And that's one of those things where you got to be intentional. And pre-COVID, post-COVID, whatever, one of the things we had on our call the other day was like, how are you adjusting to this? We can't just sit back and do nothing. You know what I mean? What are you doing? So I'll just talking to you about I'm creating this online training. I'm gonna figure out something to do for my kids, for my family in general. But just keeping up with that concept of children spell love TIME. I remember my son was like 3, and I was, school was, I had to go to class, the physical place. Now we online, but I had just got off work, and then I went to school, and then it was summertime, so we got out of school a little bit early, and I got home about 8:20. And my boy came to me like, "Dad, can you come kick the soccer ball with me?" And my first response was like, "Nah, son, I'm a little tired." And he said, "Okay, Dad," and kind of walked off. And I just sat there and thought about that shit like, man, get your ass up. And man, I got out there and man, I got out there and kicked the soccer ball with my boy. I kicked the soccer ball with my boy, I said, skip all of that, tired, whatever. I'm gonna take I'm gonna be intentional about spending time with my boy. And I got out there and kicked that ball with him until the street lights came on, until it got dark, because I knew that that was important for him. And so just recently, just Dad, can we do a arts and craft day? I'm like, yeah, sure. Then I forgot about it. Then they don't let you forget. If you say you go do something, they, they if you say make a promise, you better keep it, because they definitely gonna remind you. Remember, Dad, you said. So after this, I've got to go up to Walmart and get some stuff just to do some arts and crafts stuff, you know. And then remember I was telling you about the crayon episode. But I ain't gonna talk too much on that. But man, just spending that time with your kid, man, is very important.
Yeah, he decided he gonna cook some crayons for his kid. Yeah, I'll talk about it. You know, we talk about the great things about being fatherhood, but there's, you know, I argue there's even a appreciation and a greatness in our lowest moments about being fathers. So this conversation, for some reason, just made me think of two moments, one for each of my two older boys. So the first story is I remember my oldest son. I was I don't know what I was. Let's just say wrong. And very often he would ask me to play with him. And I would say, not now, daddy's busy. Daddy's working, you know, running my businesses, trying to be a kingpin, whatever you want to call it. And that was usually the response. He'd be like, let's play. Can I play? Will you play with me? Not now, daddy's busy. And I remember this day where his younger brother came up to me and said, Daddy, let's play. And before I could open my mouth, his older brother said, he scolded him. His older brother scolded him and said, you see daddy working. You see him working. Daddy doesn't have time to play with you. And his little brother said, I'm sorry. And they walked away. And that's when I realized I've messed up. When I had not only trained my oldest son that I don't got time for him, but I had trained him to such a level that he was teaching his younger brother that daddy doesn't have time for you. So that's the first story that this conversation made me think of. Now, the second story was his younger brother, where we were out downtown one day. And again, always business motivated because I thought that's what it meant to be a father, what it meant to be a man. And they, they had the harbor market downtown by the water or whatever. And I said to myself, let me just get these boys some popcorn or whatever. And I go and get them some popcorn and I pull out some money to pay. And my boy, this is after the divorce, we're separated. And my boy goes, you have money? And I'm like, what do you mean I have money? How do you think you made it this far in life? But what that showed me was, even though I'm thinking that I know my son and he knows me, he is 4 or 5 years old and he's like, I didn't know you had money. I've never seen you pay for anything. So here I am walking around with the nice suits and the nice ties. And he's like, huh, I didn't know you had money. That's interesting. There, there is a there is a beautiful, genuine mirror in how children interact with us if we take the time to listen to them when they speak to us. And I think as fathers, we're moving so fast. We're so concerned with time. We're usually the ones sitting in the car saying, "Oh, why won't she get out here? What is she doing with those kids?" We're so concerned with time, we don't truly appreciate what time is. Not everything's meant to be rushed. Not everything's meant to be assumed. So when I reflect on this, I argue that even your lowest moments of being a father can be just as precious.
Yeah.
Even with the younger, the other story I think about is I was trying to teach him to ride his bicycle, without the training wheels. And it wasn't the whole day, but when you're a dad and you're busy, it feels like the whole day. Maybe it was 3 hours at the most. And he just wasn't getting it. He just wasn't getting it. And I am frustrated. I am utterly frustrated. And I'm like, man, this kid is just not getting it. This is a waste of a day. This is a complete waste of a day. We accomplished nothing today. And so it's getting dark out. So I'm like, all right, let's go inside. And I'm I don't know if I'm upset. I know I'm frustrated. I know I'm defeated. And that little boy, we're walking back inside. I'm carrying his bike now. I'm not even trying to get him to ride it. I'm carrying the bike. And that boy says to me, "This is the greatest day ever."
Hmm.
And I just felt so humiliated that I forgot what it was about. I made it about him on some arbitrary, I don't know, success metric.
Yeah.
For him, he's like, "Man, my dad just spent the whole day with me." And that's what he said to me. He's like, "This is the greatest day ever." So just think about that while you're sitting there in your head and you're going, "This is the worst day ever. He can't ride his bike." Your boy's like, "This is the greatest day ever." He
Yeah.
was so happy. And you have these moments where I think, as far as fatherhood, that was not one of my best days, but I think it was one of the most necessary days for me as a father.
Mhm. Yeah. That remind me of that quote that what was it? Two stone cutters was working, and one said, "I'm just over here cutting these stones," when somebody asked them what they was doing. But the other one said, "I'm putting bricks together to build a cathedral." So while we might be thinking like it's just some mundane task or whatever, our kids are thinking this is the greatest day ever. This is going down in the books, you know. And just let's talk about that, man. Our kids consume everything that we do, whether we there with them or not. And I just say that because there's an accountability factor there, and there's an integrity thing there as well. Because you might think that I ain't doing it around him, so or her, so and they don't see it. But there's a connection there, a spiritual connection there, where they become what they're around or exposed to. And so you have to be mindful of that and constantly aware. So as I'm communicating with my wife, as I'm communicating with my daughter, or communicating with anybody, even when you come over, and in those conversations, you might not think he listening, but he in the room listening, just like I was in the room listening to my dad or my mama, and or arguing and all of that stuff, and then that becomes what's normal to them. So creating that new normal for them through your actions. Everything doesn't have to be a lecture. You don't have to sit them down and say, "Look, son, this is how it is." You talk to them more through your actions than through your words. So, last year I was in a different income bracket. Things changed things changed with COVID or whatever, but I had someone cutting the grass every week. And so my dad said, "Dad, why you don't just cut the grass?" I said, well, son, I could cut the grass, and if I had to, I will. But at this time, Dad got a lot going on. So what I choose to do is make enough money so that I can pay the guy to cut the grass. And so I forget who he was talking to, one of his friends or whatever. And the guy was out cutting the grass, and one of his cousins was spending the night. And they all talking about it. He like, oh, that's just the dude. My dad paid him to cut the grass, and I ain't thinking he was just gonna catch on to all of that. And then another example, they in there playing chess. So I taught my boy chess. We play chess. And his cousins coming over here talking about, and they don't play chess. And they like, you supposed to move the piece like this. So he comes to me like, Dad, ain't you supposed to move the rook like this? The rook only go up and down and left to right, right? I'm like, do you believe that? He like, yeah, I know that. I'm like, well, you got to stand on what you know. I'm like, didn't your dad tell you that? I'm like, do you think I'm a liar? So it's not for me to go in that room and interfere with all three of those boys and say, look, do y'all even know how to play chess? Y'all don't know what y'all talking about. It's for me to coach my boy up to go in there and have the confidence to go in there and say, look, my daddy taught me this. And so he went in there and did it. I'm just hearing him saying like, nope, this how it is. This my dad. No, my dad said this. And then it got to a point where I had to come in and chime in like, hey, kids, he right. And he like, see, I told you so.
You had to be tournament director though. You wasn't daddy.
Right.
You was tournament director.
Right. So like taking it on a spiritual level, I was going to I was going to prepare a sermon today, but I got sidetracked or whatever. But Christ said, I forget what he was going through, but anyway, I'm not a pastor, but he said, I do what I see my father do. You remember that? He, like, the people was questioning him about what he was doing, and he said, I only do what I see my father do. Right. And so that's our kids. They generally do what they see their father do. And Christ was confident with every time they challenged him on it. Look, this not me. It's not he just can't. And so if I got that defense, like I'm walking around with confidence, like, look, my daddy said this. And then my daddy don't lie. My daddy, even if I'm wrong, my daddy said it. And so that's what Christ did all day long. I do what I see my father do.
And maybe that's where we should tie it up. Where like being a father, it's you got this awesome little person running around who, whatever you are, that's what they want to be. But you also got this responsibility where whatever you do, that's what they want to do. I remember there was music I used to listen to. Then I noticed that whatever I listened to, that's what they bob their heads to. I stopped listening to that music. It's different. It's different when you see them bobbing their head to that same song. And it's like, yeah, I don't want you doing it.
That's
So
that do as I say, not as I do mentality.
so you had to stop doing it.
Yeah.
I remember one of the boys. I used to pace on the phone and yell into the phone. I was doing business with people where we didn't talk to each other. We were always yelling at each other. I was always yelling into the phone. And I remember one day I'm watching the boy pace back and forth, and he's got his hand up to his ear. He just and it took me days to figure out what he was doing. He was mimicking me as a 2, 3-year-old baby, yelling into a phone that he didn't have. I decided then and there, I need to change the people I do business with. If I have to yell at you through the phone, you're the wrong person for me to be doing business with. And I started doing that. I started changing the types of people I interact. Well, let's be more. It's not wholly that. I started changing how I do business, but I also started changing the people I do business with. So I did both because I didn't want him growing up thinking that that's how life is. And that's maybe what it's about with fatherhood is no matter what your life is, You can decide what your child grows up thinking life is. You know, um, you can be a poor man and your child does not grow up knowing that they're poor. You can decide that. We've heard those stories of grown men saying, my father was poor, but I didn't know it
Mm,
until I went to middle school or high school and the other kids told me I was poor. You can build the world for your child how you want it to be built. The question is, do you have the courage and conviction, intestinal fortitude, and the discipline to maintain it?
yeah. And that just remind me, man, I can't remember the story exactly, but there was a mother who didn't know how to read, and her kids was in school. And when her kids will come to her and ask her for help with reading, she would say, well, won't you show me what you got? You read what you know. And taught her kids how to read, even though she didn't know how to read. I'm like, man, that's fascinating. I'm gonna find that story now, but
I think that might have been our boy Ben Carson.
that is Ben Carson. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that is Ben Carson.
That's when we liked them.
Yeah, I still like Ben Carson, but that's another story. But I mean, we can go here too. For the guy out there who's a father and your father wasn't the greatest example, you need to realize that, like, the other direction, not your kid, you don't realize that you're teaching your dad how to father in a way that he never seen. So I've seen this before where a guy is fathering and now grandpa is getting more involved with the grandkids. So this fatherhood is lifelong journey. You don't graduate with a degree in fatherhood. It's just continuous improvement, continuous learning. And so the grandpa who wasn't the greatest example is now interacting with the grandkids and watching their son interact with his kids, and he's learning through that process. And that's how deep it is, because that man might be at a level where he tells himself he wrote his dad off, and some guys like, I don't even want my kids to know my granddad. It's a movie, I mean, know the granddad. It's the Netflix series All American, gives a good example on that. But you need to realize that through your actions, you are both teaching your father, who may have had a different way of thinking, and your kid at the same time. So that put even more responsibility on you to go out there and do the best that you can in this world, in this line of fatherhood.
So I don't want to be a liar. So I'm not going to continue it on. But I think if we do this, not if, when we do this again,
Yeah,
we should probably pick up on the idea of legacy,
legacy.
where, you know, whatever you want your kids to be for you need to demonstrate that with how you are with your father. And
Mm,
so that's something that I am actively working on,
yeah.
and I am not acing it.
Okay.
I'll tell you right now, I am not getting an A on that test.
Yeah.
So I think that might be a good place to pick up on
Yeah.
next time.
Yeah.
Legacy of fatherhood, you
Yeah.
know, from one generation to the next generation to the next generation.
Yeah. Let's do it.
But yeah, I just want to thank everybody for listening to us talk about everything and nothing. And happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. And yeah, just thank you for rapping with us and listening, for those of you who are listening for a good time. And I'll let Charmaine finish this one out.
Yeah. So yeah, man, happy Father's Day. It's a lifelong journey, and for those that don't know me, man, I come from a background of uh the streets, and did some things, and went to prison, got out, and the only thing that really changed me, man, was the birth of my first son. And like, literally the only thing. And once I just seen him born, like, just watching the process of the creator, like a seed planted in the womb, and it grows. And then, like, I used to joke with my wife, like, it's a human being growing inside of you right now. Like, think about that. That's crazy. And maybe I was involved in some drugs I probably shouldn't be involved with at the time. But I'm just sitting there, like, fascinated, like, man, it's a human being growing inside of you that I have to take care of. and that I have to constantly water this seed and constantly take care of it like a delicate flower. Cultivate it, not let it die out. Like, I'm not picking this flower out so that it can, not yet. Eventually you get to that point, but allow that process of fatherhood to impact you, allow it to change you, so that you can then go and change your kids' lives and all the kids you engage with in the community lives. Appreciate y'all. We thank y'all. We'll catch y'all next time when we talk about the legacy of fatherhood.